We'll just start. So good afternoon, everyone. I am Sanjeev Mohta from B&K Securities. On behalf of B&K, I welcome you all to another session of our ideation series. We have with us Mr. Umesh Chowdhary, Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Titagarh Wagons. Uh, Titagarh Wagon is one of the best ways to play railways. We all know that, and railways has been, in news for quite some time, and a lot of stories we can talk. I think 1 hour is going to be less, Mr. Chaudhary, to discuss this whole subject, but we'll try and limit that. So we also have Kunal with us, who heads the other sector. So the way we'll do it is I'll ask you some macro and strategy questions, and then Kunal, if we have time permitting, we'll ask some of the more micro company level questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks so much. So maybe I can just quickly start off. So if I look at the company, you've kind of divided into three parts right now. One is freight, one is passenger, and then you have the shipbuilding and bridges and defense as one part. And all of them are kind of in news right now. So maybe if you can just talk about each of this opportunity in terms of freight, passenger, and your third business. Like, what is the whole macro, environment? Like, how is it looking? How are you looking at this whole scenario for next few years?
Sure. Thank you very much, Sanjeev. Great pleasure being with you in this ideation series. I like this concept a lot. I don't think I have really come across this kind of a concept in the past. But just to give you the overall flavor of the business that we operate in, just a, like kind of a helicopter view. So there are three sectors, as you very rightly pointed out, that we operate in. I'll first speak about the freight wagon segment. So let me give you a little bit of the large numbers, the large picture here. So if you look at the overall logistics cost of the Indian system of the Indian economy, we are at about 15-16% of the total GDP is the logistics cost, which ideally should be much lesser. It should be definitely in a single digit kind of a number. So there is a big delta that has to be covered. Now, if you look at the breakup of the logistics cost between this overall logistics, so the waterways is the cheapest, the railway is the second, the road is the third, and of course the air is the highest cost. So in this whole Prime Minister's Gati Shakti program, the Prime Minister and the government of India, in order to make India into the $5 trillion economy that it is committed to move towards, have to work and have committed to work on the logistics cost per se in a very, very targeted manner. And for that, the waterways and the railways have been identified as the big enablers. And as a result of this, a lot of investments, as we have seen in the recent newspaper reports, have happened and are going to continue to happen on building the track infrastructure or the railway capacity. Now, if you really again take this to kind of a logical conclusion, then when the railway is spending money on building tracks, building signalings, buying locomotive, we just saw 1,200 locomotive order being finalized on one of the large international players. So this is all building of a capacity. Now, if you look at railways as an entity or a commercial entity, when they are creating capacity, they have to utilize capacity. So, how do they utilize capacity? It is by carrying more traffic or carrying more cargo. For that, they cannot carry the cargo on the railway tracks on head loads. They have to carry it on wagon loads. And they need more and more wagons. Now, zooming into the wagon market per se, they have total fleet size of wagons in India is about 2.5 lakh wagons. So I'm giving you all these numbers are not accurate numbers, but order of magnitude numbers.
Sure.
So 2.5 lakh wagon is what the Indian Railway has today in their fleet. And they carry around 24-25% of the total cargo that is carried compared to the road. Now, the calculation goes somewhat like this. If you look at a standard life of a wagon, the coder life of wagon is around 25 years. So if we consider that all these wagons were were added into the railway system at equated points of time, they need 4% of the wagons for replacement demand. So हर साल 4% रेलवे का वैगन जो है वो स्क्रैप होगा और उनको रिप्लेस करना होगा. Thereafter, we look at the GDP. The GDP grows at say 7%. Of course, there is a multiplier uh, of logistics to GDP. But even if I do not consider that multiplier now, if the GDP grows at 7% and the railways continue to keep the same market share, they need additional 7% of the freight wagons. So 2.5 lakh wagon current fleet, 7% on account of GDP, 4% on account of replacement, 11% demand of 11% of the wagon needs to be added every year, which is about 27,000 wagons. So this is the large picture. And then for every 1% growth in the market share that the railway has, they need 10,000 wagons extra. Again, 250,000 wagons, 25% market share. So 1% represents 10,000 wagons. So agar hum log ye total, if we put all these papers into all these numbers onto a paper, we will see that the demand that has been now projected by the railways of about 25 to 30,000 wagons, or they place an order for 30,000 wagons annually for the next 3 years. In our opinion, unless there is a big shift on the economic growth or there is something which is unforeseen, this is here to stay for a good period of time. And all the indicators, whether it is the Prime Minister's Gati Shakti program, whether it is the idea to move the logistics cost downward, whether it is to make India into a $5 trillion economy, whether it is the servicing of the investment that the railways is making on the tracks and the signaling infrastructure, all of this points towards one direction, and that is railway has to increase their freight loading, and in order to increase their freight loading, they must renew their rolling stock fleet. So this is
Sure.
as far as the wagon is
Umesh,
concerned.
let me just interrupt you here 1 second, and which
Sure.
is on the so if I read your last 10 annual reports or whatever, DFC has been one thing that we've been talking about for quite some time because it was supposed to happen, kept getting delayed and so on. Now finally DFC is also looks like starts. Does that also change anything, or does that even change the quality of wagons or anything else in terms of how that should look like?
So DFC is not the puzzle in itself. It is a very important piece of the puzzle. So
Right.
the picture is getting completed with DFC, but DFC in itself is not the picture. And it is a number of things, I mean, look at the railways have added 5,000 kilometers of tracks in 2022. They are likely to add 5,000 kilometers of track in 2023. So, these are numbers which have been unheard of since independence, I would say. So अगर हम लोग देखें, so whether it is the DFC, whether it is the upgradation of the locomotives, whether it is the upgradation of the track, whether it is the upgradation of the signaling, whether it is the introduction of anti-collision devices like Kavach by the railways, which will reduce the distance between two trains so that more trains can run on the track. So all of this is adding capacity. And DFC is certainly a very important part of that entire picture.
Sure. And remaining with the wagon, so you talked about, let's say, 35,000 per year demand kind of thing. Currently, I think there are very few players, like you are obviously the largest, and then you have Texmaco and now. Are you going to see more competition coming in here because of, now that it's much more certain that orders are going to come?
So, as you said right now, Sajeev, that there are many players. I think the industry today has the necessary capacity to cater to the demand. Of course, we are the largest capacity. We have the largest capacity at this point of time, and I believe that the competition in any industry is not fixed. We are not in the license Raj anymore. So we are in a free market, and competitors or companies in a segment will come, companies in a segment will go. What will make them stick and what will make them survive is their internal competencies and competence. So I have never been really bothered about competition. and I don't continue to not be bothered about competition. For me, myself, what I was yesterday is the biggest competition. So I really don't see that as a challenge.
Sure. Well, we'll come back to freight because important in terms of the context of the company. But let's talk a bit about the metro and the Vande Bharat opportunity, right? So metro, clearly now we have what, about 16 metros operating, and we're talking about going to 50. And given our Italy partnership, our Italy company that we acquired, we also have the expertise to do that. But overall, and again, I'll come back to that in a bit more detail. But overall, from an opportunity perspective, how big is this metro opportunity? Uh, if you can quantify a bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I just mentioned to you about the freight macro size. I did not talk to you about the positioning of Titagarh or our
Sure.
capacity in
Yeah,
that.
that's right.
So that we will
We'll come to
probably
that.
do
Yeah.
in, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm just giving you the helicopter view of
Sure.
the industry.
Sure.
So the same helicopter view I'll give you of the passenger train industry. So in the passenger train industry, earlier Indian Railways used to manufacture its own coaches in its own workshops, and also used to buy some of these local trains like the Mumbai local EMUs, etc. In Titagarh, we started making these EMUs. We were the first private sector company in India to start manufacture Mumbai local trains in 2007. And we got the order. We developed the trains in record time, and we've supplied more than 300 EMUs to the Indian Railways. But then, the intention always used to be that India is an aspirational country. India is a country where the population, the people of India are no longer going to be content living let me put it this way, living a third class compartmental life. They would like to move forward, and it becomes more aspirational. So what does aspiration in travel mean? It means more comfortable, modern, luxurious, faster trains. So we wanted to be in that segment, and we were very clear that these trains are going to come today, tomorrow, or day after, but they will be coming sheerly because the people are going to demand it. And that's exactly what our bet was. We thought that we will start making metro coaches, and in order to enter into the metro coach segment, we needed technology, we needed qualification, we needed manufacturing and product technology. So Europe was the only country which was really coming into our mind, is that is the country which is focusing a lot on luxury or comfortable train travel. So uh, how the market started developing was, as you just now said, 16 metro operating or under construction, 50 in the pipeline. Then the Indian Railways starting to introduce the semi-high speed to high speed trains. This whole Vande Bharat trains, etc., etc. So if we look at this entire segment, so we'll just break it down to metro and to the passenger train segment. So the metro segment, 50 metro projects, as it has been announced by the Honorable Prime Minister. Even if you look at one metro project having between 100 and 150 coaches, we are talking about an opportunity size of 5 to 7,000 coaches. Each coach costing about 10 crores on a ballpark. So we're talking about a 50 to 75,000 crore kind of an opportunity for coaches in the next 5, 7, 10 years. Then we talk about the Vande Bharats. There are already 200 that have been tendered out. 200, the tender is ongoing. And we read newspaper reports that there are going to be another additional 350 that is likely to be announced in the near future. So the whole fleet size of, or the fleet structure of the Indian Railways and of the urban mobility in India, the whole picture, the whole paradigm is shifting. And with this shift, having been in this position where we are the only Indian company to have its own technology, having its own facility to manufacture both aluminium and stainless steel coaches, we would be in a sweet spot to be able to be an important player or at least a significant player. We are not the leaders for sure as of now in this segment, but we are a new entrant. So, we will obviously will give ourselves time to kind of grow in the segment. But this is a segment which we believe that is going to be very, the population of India is really not going down, and the aspirations of people are going up. So definitely for the modern, comfortable passenger coaches, the demand is likely to be there. This also opens up an opportunity or an avenue for exports. Look, India can be, China plus one policy is real. It's here, and we are seeing it in the marketplace. Even in Europe, I'm seeing it. Even in different parts of the world, I'm seeing it. So if you look at, that's not only for manufacturing capacity but also for purchasing. That is really, psychologically people are wanting to have alternatives to China. So that being the case, India is very well suited not only for make in India but make in India for the world, as the government is asking the Indian industry to do. So we are looking at manufacturing in our facility, which has been set up to global standards. We've taken all the European accreditation. We are going to have the IRIS, which is the kind of apex railway certification for exports. So all of this being in place, we will not only look at catering into the Indian market, but also then slowly and steadily branching out along with the Italian associate that we have into the other global markets for the passenger trains. In the same segment, the business segment that we are looking at, and in a very important manner, is the propulsion segment. Today we've already, our traction motors we've set up for the facility, and it's been already approved by the Indian Railways for locomotive traction motors. We are now developing for the EMUs. Our target is to develop the propulsion, entire traction converter, traction motor, and the train control management system for our entire trains, and also to sell to the Indian Railways. So, this is a very important uh, kind of a strategy for us, because not only will it give us the cost advantage, which is similar to a company like Alstom, but also put us in a much more let me put it this way, that it'll improve our margins, because right now when we buy propulsion, a bulk of our margin goes to the propulsion supplier. So it'll improve us or help us to achieve the targeted EBITDA in this business. So
So
that is,
this you have done it through your tie-up with ABB, right?
so there are actually, the company that associate, the earlier subsidiary, now associate, Firema in Italy, has its own propulsion technology. So there are two different types of propulsion. One is a 750 kilovolt propulsion, which is called the third rail, and the second is a 25 kVA. So the Italian system works on a 750 kilovolt. So that technology we are able to get from Italy. The 25 kVA, we did not have the technology in Italy. So that there we have tied up for the EMU and MEMU propulsion specifically. We have tied up with ABB, and we have a collaboration agreement there.
Right. So, if you were to break, so basically summarizing what you're saying, the opportunity in metro is not only the cars, but also equipment, so to say, which you can do on your own for internal consumption and for exports as well.
That's right. So we will, for our internal consumption, I would say this business is going to take maybe a year and a half or two to completely mature. We've already started invoicing, but to be able to reach the levels that we have to reach, it will take us at least a year and a half, maybe a couple of years, to be completely Atmanirbhar for the propulsion, if I can say so. But yes, we are going towards that.
Right. And in terms of opportunity size, just if you can maybe, overall, what kind of numbers are we talking about in India, globally? What is the market size of this?
So I'll give you a very, very thumb rule-ish kind of a number. So
Yeah.
25% of the cost of the coach is the cost of the propulsion. So
Right.
if the opportunity for coaches is, say, 50,000 crores, then 25% of that is the propulsion opportunity.
Right. But there's also an export opportunity, right? Which is, as you
Yeah,
said,
so this is true for globe, I mean, so
right.
in the export opportunity, for example, even our own associate, Titagarh, the coaches that they are now supplying for the Rome metro, region, the propulsion we are intending to produce in India for them.
I see.
So that opens up an export opportunity straight away.
Right. Fair point. Okay. So
This is the second one.
sure.
And I'll come to the third business vertical, which is the shipbuilding, bridges, and defense. This is
Actually,
yeah.
maybe Umesh, you can talk a bit about the Vande Bharat part also, which is, you guys have, there was a news that you guys have tied up with BHEL for that. So maybe you can talk a bit about that as well. Yeah.
Sure. So, Vande Bharat is, of course, the first indigenously developed train that is like a semi-high speed modern train, which is been introduced in the Indian railway system. The railways tendered out the first 200 trains to be built by private sector. They call it the technology partner. So where the industry has to give some technological inputs, make those trains more comfortable in the sense they have to be sleeping coaches and they have to be overnight trains, but at the same time not be like the old trains that Indians were used to. We participated in this tender. There are 5 bids, as we all know, in public domain, and all I can say that this, while this tender is under evaluation, so it's not proper for me to speak much about it. But we are very happy that we are the only Indian consortium in this tender. So Titagarh and BHEL is the true only Indian consortium. So if you look at the other consortiums, every single consortium has a foreign partner. This consortium is purely Indian. So from that perspective, that an Indian consortium could compete, could participate, could qualify to bid in a tender like this in itself is a big first. The second is, the very fact that we've been able to enter this path now of partnering with BHEL and moving forward. We have put in our best bid and we are keeping our fingers crossed, but a tender is a tender. We will know when it opens what happens. But the opportunity is so large that even the 5 players that have bid will not be able to cater to that opportunity.
Right.
So it's only a matter of time. But the opportunity is so large. India is such a large country that the sheer volumes will not be enough for 1, 2, or 3, or 4, or even 5 of us.
Right. So even if you don't get anything in this one, there is a lot of future opportunities. What you are kind of suggesting.
We truly believe in that. Not saying that we are not keeping our fingers crossed. As I said, we are keeping everything crossed that we'll get this one also. But then we are keeping. I mean, now the bullet is already fired. Where it will hit, we don't know.
Sure. Okay, so let's come to the third part, which while macro-wise, defense has been a big theme, but last time I was talking to you, you guys are right now keeping it more kind of low-key but you can talk a bit about that. Yeah.
So I'm not saying we are keeping it low key. I would say that we are keeping the engines on slow fire. You see, we kind of pull the full. So let me put it a little metaphorically that we have 3 engines to fire. The first we have already fully fired, which is the freight. We are already at about 550 wagons a month of capacity of production. We are targeting to get to 700 wagons, which is our contractual requirement for the contract that we got from the railways. We will go even higher, maybe to 800, 850 wagons. So, that engine is fully fired. The second engine is the propulsion and passenger trains, as we call transit and propulsion. This is now, I would say, on the takeoff stage. We have already kind of moved forward for the takeoff, and very soon we'll be on the at a good flying level. So that engine is also kind of going to be fully operational. The third one is on a slow fire, which is the shipbuilding and the defense business. Now here we started doing ships for the Indian Navy, for National Institute of Ocean Technology. We partnered with GRSE on a few projects. So with all of this, we have kind of gotten ourselves qualified and recognized as a high quality ship manufacturer. We just couple of months ago, we launched our first warship with GRSE, which is a fast patrol vessel for the Indian Coast Guard. So with all of this, we are kind of ready to be an important ship manufacturer. We already have an order from the Indian Navy for almost 11, 12 ships. We are looking at some more ships. So, all of that is there. But one of the biggest constraints we had in the shipyard was our physical infrastructure, which is now in Titagarh, which, had a problem with the water draft and also with the Havra Bridge, so the air draft on terms of the size of the ships that we could do. So we've acquired a place in the south side of Havra Bridge, which was in the surfacey with the bank. So we are now building that infrastructure over there. So over the next maybe couple of years, we'll be ready with that infrastructure. We are dedicating limited amount of resources in terms of human and capital resources. But our businesses that once we have these two businesses, I mean, if you really look at Titagarh, if I just step back for a minute and I just tell you about the size and aspirational growth of Titagarh. So in 2016, 17, 18, Titagarh, India was doing an average revenue of 300 odd crores. In 2019, 20, and 21, we did an average revenue of about 1,000 crores. In 2022, we did about 1,500 crores. In the last quarter in September, we did about 620 crores, which is an annualized revenue of about 2,500 crores. So we've come from that 300 crore journey 5 years back to a 2,500 crore annualized revenue, which is primarily backed by the freight business. Now, the passenger business has equivalent capability, and the third business, when we take it off, would have also the equivalent capabilities.
Right.
So that's how we are looking at kind of growing the entire entity backed up by these three engines. So that's as far as shipbuilding is concerned. On defense, we've done many projects. We've been pretty much under the radar, but we've done a number of projects for the Indian defense. We've partnered with DRDO. We've done nuclear shelters for them. We've done launching mechanisms for them. We've done bulletproof wagons for them. So we've done we are right now doing EMI, EMC, electromagnetic interference and communication shelters for the defense. So number of these niche projects we've been doing for them. But we have our facility in Bharatpur, which is close to Delhi, 200 acres of plant area in the NCR region. So we intend going forward, maybe in a couple of years, dedicating that to the defense business, maybe to the tank refurbishment business, and so on and so forth, and grow both the shipbuilding here and the defense part over there.
Sure. Sure. So, I guess coming more to a bit of history, Umesh, and of course, railway has been very, very erratic in terms of, and it's been very tough for anyone in just in this business, given the erratic order book from railways. So, I guess you guys have had diversified, at least geographically. You looked at France, Italy, and so on. They didn't work out really the way one would have thought, although of course there are some benefits from Italy, as you just talked about. But maybe if you can just talk a bit about the past, what have guys, what have been the learnings, how are you guys looking at it going forward, and where is the focus in terms of are you still looking at outside India? So if you can just talk a bit about that journey.
Sure, Sanjeev. So what happens is, in hindsight, all of us are wiser. I mean,
That's
a
right.
decision at the point we take, obviously the decision seems to be the best, otherwise we will not take it.
Yeah.
In hindsight, if the decision comes out, we speak about it as a genius. If it doesn't, we talk about it as a failure. So, but I would say that that's how the entire evolution of a company or of an entity actually happens. So in our case is no different. We've actually done, you've spoken about the overseas, but we've actually done a number of other projects also. We meddled into going to tractors, we meddled into going to earth moving equipments. I mean, I have a laundry list of failures that we've had in our lives. So, those what was important for me and what is important for our company is to be able to recognize when to bite the bullet and step out of it. And that's what we've done successfully. We've been able to decide what we want to do and what we don't want to do, because I always believe and I always tell my team that it's very important to know what to do, but it's more important to know what not to do. And we kind of decided when we wanted to exit certain entities or certain geographies, we needed to know when to dilute our stake in certain entities like we did in Italy, because to have the government of Italy join in as a partner is a very big achievement. You know, it makes us seize control, but it makes us even a minority owner in a much stronger and a much larger potentialed entity. So all of that is important. In terms of the future, I don't want to kind of never say never, but we've kind of recognize that the opportunity available in our sectors, in the three sectors that we have identified for growth in India, is going to keep us adequately occupied over the next decade, hopefully. So, I don't see that we would have much of bandwidth except for market opportunities or strategic opportunities to really diversify out of this three sector or three segments of business that we have, and still achieve the target, as I just mentioned to you, that we have set ourselves.
Sure. And just in terms of Italy, as you said, now you've become not a majority holder in that sense, and below 51 now. So from a financial perspective, does that mean that Titagarh Wagon India is kind of ring fenced from that you don't have to put any more cash, that's not required anymore, or how?
There's no obligation to put any more cash from Titagarh Wagons.
Yeah.
Titagarh Wagons owns 49% of the shares of Titagarh Firema. We are fully aware that there are, kind of headwinds, geopolitical headwinds in that part of the world, whether it is with relation to the aftermath of COVID or the Ukraine war or the energy crisis or the high rate of inflation. So, we have built that entire thing into the books of Titagarh Wagon. So, if you look at the investment value as it was declared in the September results, and also I mentioned during our investor call, we have an exposure in Titagarh Wagon of hardly 10-12 crores in by way of the investment value. Of course, there's some land that has been one of the land which has been mortgaged, but by and large, there is no obligation on Titagarh Wagons to kind of put in more cash. Any further potential exposure will be based on merit, not based on obligation.
Right. Fair point. So, and the France subsidiary is also closed down right now. We don't have anything there.
Yeah, we've exited the French subsidiary, and that's when I said, we don't need to know when to bite the bullet.
Right.
And we believe that, in a territory like France, which has a very high labor cost and, I would say labor issues. I would not, I would not like to use any other word. So challenges which are there, with the 35-hour week and all of that. A wagon, which is not a very high technology product, is not cost competitive to be produced
Right.
there. So we've exited that completely.
Yeah. Umesh, coming to the family part. So your son Pritish is now also in the business, right? He's young, but I hear good things about him in general. A lot of good feedback.
I'm
But
happy he's not hearing that.
but I'm just saying, so from a succession point of view, all that, although you're too young to from a succession perspective, but I think all that is quite clear. There's because generally one of the things that we see in family firms, many times this becomes a bit of an issue and so on. But is there like all that is very clear, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I fully appreciate and understand where you're coming from, and yeah,
Yeah.
we've also as a family gone through our challenges, but in terms of situation now, I think after me it's Pritesh who's responsible, and at this young age of 21, he
Yeah.
started taking a hell of a lot of responsibilities.
Right. That's great to hear. Yeah. So actually, let's move into business part. Despite all these challenges that you've gone through, the balance sheet is pretty decent. So maybe if you can just talk a bit about your thought on how you've managed and in terms of capital allocation going forward also, how are you looking at that?
So in terms of our policy, our philosophy, we've always maintained we've always tried to maintain a very strong, healthy balance sheet. And the way we discuss internally also that profit and loss is one aspect, which is like food. So if you can go without, you can have a day where you have had very good food, and you've had a day where you didn't even have time to have your lunch. So you can still survive that. Cash flow is like oxygen, so you need to have cash all the time in order to survive. But balance sheet is something which is your entire being. It's your entire body. So if your balance sheet is not healthy enough, if it's not robust enough, then I think you will not be able to come out of any cycle, or enjoy the upside of the cycle. So what we've really done is we've tried to, of course, when you go through difficult phases that we have also gone through, your balance sheets take a little bit of a suffering, and it's very important to make sure that you can come out of that, and make sure that the balance sheet is completely strong and clean, and robust. So that's something that we've been able to maintain. We don't have any long term debt in our company. Working capital debt is there, but then also we are working on reducing the working capital cycles by innovative methods of financing, by better negotiation with suppliers, and so on and so forth. So we are fairly confident that we'll be able to maintain even a healthier balance sheet going forward.
Sure. And one last question from me before I hand it over to Kunal, which is that in terms of, if I look at, you talked about maybe 7,500 crores of sales, maybe 3 years down the line, if all the engines are firing, assuming, or maybe even more. What would that mean in terms of like funding, either working capital requirement or CapEx? What is required to reach that kind of number?
So firstly, I didn't speak about any numbers. I mean, that's
No,
your
so
calculation. So
I know that
I
I'm
should
just
be
multiplying your
clear.
number by three.
I should be clear. I was speaking about opportunities. I was not speaking about
Sure,
projections,
sure.
so that I'm not asked to explain.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If
So
let's assume, let's take a positive scenario and say that
okay.
happens.
No, I just wanted to be, put a disclaimer like you guys
That's
do,
right.
So I'm just putting that disclaimer that
Right.
these were not my numbers. These are your calculations of my analysis. But be that as it may, in terms of, I just told you that we are a debt-free company. We will be generating cash. We are generating cash. So we've spent quite a bit of capex in the last 3 years. If you see our balance sheet, all the capex has been internally funded. In spite of that, we've been able to reduce debt from the operations and by operational efficiencies. So, when there is opportunity, I don't think that the opportunity is going to be a victim of resource availability. So if the opportunity is strong, if the opportunity is solid, we'll cross the bridge when we come to it, and make sure that we have the resources to kind of take advantage of that opportunity.
Sure. No, so actually, maybe I'm asking it in a different way. So, in terms of working capital requirement for most of these businesses would be require reasonable working capital, or that's not the case?
Yes, they require reasonable working capital, and we have adequate limits with the banks. We have very good relationship with the banks to get those limits. And we have a consortium of many banks. All the large banks are in our consortium. So we don't see that as a challenge, Sanjeev. And then one of the things that I just mentioned a few minutes ago is working capital efficiency. We are focusing a lot on getting working capital efficiency.
Right. Fair point. So, if given that railways is a big buyer, or it could be B2G kind, a lot of business could be B2G. That's not a payments are not an issue.
Touchwood, absolutely not. Railway is very well managed. It has been managed very well, but now under the present dispensation, it is brilliantly managed. We've not had challenges with the railways overcommitting and under delivering in terms of resource allocation, etc., etc. So no, that's not a challenge. It's the normal working capital cycle which any industry. It's not one of those extraordinary working capital requirements because your counterpart is an unhealthy counterpart. That's not the case here.
Sure. Look, thanks so much, Umesh. Kunal, over to you.
Good evening, sir.
Can't hear you, Kunal. Your voice is breaking.
Is it better now, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Sir, my question is relating to what Sanjeev was mentioning about the working capital. While you did mention that you will have the resources and working capital efficiency is something that is extremely important. But sir, how has been, because as you rightly said, we moved from 300 crores to 2005, probably end up at around 2,500 crores if we annualize. And railways has been quite erratic in their orders. So how has been the evolution of the vendor ecosystem, and therefore how should we think about execution? Is there enough preparedness in terms of ecosystem to support this kind of execution?
So very, very, very interesting question. Uh, the point Kunal, is that the ecosystem was not there, but we are working on developing that ecosystem now. So that is why we are taking this time for the ramp up. So there are many items that we used to buy, which we have started making in-house because we saw that there is not enough ecosystem for the vendors to supply that. So this is I would say this is an ongoing process. uh, there were, and probably you will ask the next question is availability of wheel sets. So before you ask, I'll tell you. Even in my sleep, sometimes I start murmuring about नहीं wheel set का कोई problem नहीं है. so so challenges are there in every industry. Wheel sets are a challenge in this industry also, but then you have to manage it. I mean, if everything was gango and everything was hunky dory, then why was I required? So I would have just gone to uh, a beach and just sip pina coladas. You need to uh, face these challenges on a day by day basis, but it's not something which is earth shattering, and it is something that we've been able to. Yes, there are challenges sometimes. Like some months we lose production, but then the next month we are able to make it up. So on an average, over the year, over the period of time, we are able to overcome the challenge.
And sir, are most of these vendors, small time vendors, and therefore do they need any kind of support from you guys, or mostly they are, large vendors and uh,
Yeah, so there are horses for the courses. I mean, you cannot categorize. There are some large vendors, there are some small vendors. We deal with giving financial support, advances to some people to enhance capacity. We get some working capital financing tied up. We have supplier credit mechanisms with banks. So, there are different, as I said, there are horses for the courses. So, different, one size doesn't fit all. We work on different models with different suppliers.
sure. So, and in our discussion, we did mention that we have had done capex over the last few years. So, with our current capacity, what kind of sales can we support? And any major, capex that we have lined up or we will require given the kind of tailwind that we are seeing in the sector?
So we announced recently that including the capex that we have incurred in the last couple of years, 3 years of about 250, 300 crores, the total capex that we have envisaged in order to complete our entire projected capacities that we have in our mind would be to a tune of about 1,000 crores. So that's another about 700 odd crores. But then that's going to be, it's not something which we've done on the basis of complete detailed DPRs. It's a approximation based on the tailwinds that we have in the market, based on the capacities. But to give you a bigger picture or a kind of a order of magnitude, the wagon capacity we have now is about 700 or 8,400 wagons a year, which we intend to enhance up to 1,000 wagons per month, or let's say 10,000 wagons a year. The coach facility we have is about 200 coaches per year, 200 to 250. We want to go to about 400 coaches per year. Propulsion, about matching with this. Shipbuilding, we want to do so that we can launch approximately 1.5 vessels per month. So that's 18 vessels per year. So, with all of this, the capex that is being planned is going to be executed over the next 4 or 5 years.
Okay. And with this, the capacities will be enough to, probably, reach our, vision or target of about 8-9,000 crores of revenue that we envisage could happen potentially.
Again, we are talking about the opportunity. We're not talking about
Yeah,
our targets. So, yeah, we believe that the opportunity exists. So I gave you the quantitative targets, 10,000 wagons, say about 400 coaches, and about 18 vessels. So that's our quantitative target that we want to reach.
And sir, on the wagon orders that we've recently received, the large one, does it come with a price variation clause given that it's with the government, or we have to bear the risk?
No, it is with a price variation clause, both upwards and downwards. So when the steel prices and the commodity prices go up, we are able to pass it through. When it goes down, then we are able to, or we have to reduce the prices. By and large, since it's linked to the wholesale price index, by and large, the entire movement does get captured, but there can be a time lag. So, both for increase and decrease, 1 quarter, if it's a sharp increase or a sharp decrease, then 1 quarter our results might get impacted positively or negatively on account of the price movement. But on a blended basis, it kind of evens out.
Sure. And sir, on the metro coaches side, while the biggest upcoming opportunity probably is the Vande Bharat, but in the probably near term, which are the other metros that we've already bidded or could come up for bidding in there? Because we have about 1,000 crore order book there, which is at an advanced stages of execution, I believe.
Yeah, so there are many opportunities, Kunal. I would not like to name the projects which are for competitive reasons, but as and when they mature, we will definitely come back and kind of announce it. But there are only three players in the metro segment in India: ourselves, Alstom, and BML. And the number of metro opportunities that are already in the pipeline are quite substantive. So we believe that it's more the market tailwind is going to continue to remain. So it's a question of timing. It's not today, then tomorrow, and day after, but opportunities are there.
Sure. And sir, would we believe that, given that, we have our own manufacturing experience and we have technology access to our Italian subsidiary associate now, we would have an cost advantage in that sense, between the three players?
No, actually not, Kunal, because the others also, I mean, for example, Alstom is a subsidiary of a global giant. So technology access is available to everybody. BML has been in this field with the Hyundai Rotem, and then they have a tie-up with Hitachi also, and so on and so forth. So there are many, I mean, the competitors who are there on the basis of the strength that they already have. And while we can develop our strength over a period of time, because whichever industry, in the wagon industry also when we entered, or the component industry also when we entered, we were a very, very fringe player, but we've been able to establish our mark into it, and we are fairly confident we'll be able to do that in the passenger train segment or the metro train segment also. But obviously, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a little bit of time, but we are well on our way to getting there. For example, we will be the only ones in India to have the both aluminium and stainless steel and carbon steel manufacturing facility. Nobody else in India does.
No, sir. What I meant was more from the manufacturing footprint cost side, because while I agree that technology access is available with everyone, but given that, would we be more localized if I were to, try and put it that way?
We would be fully localized once we have our own propulsion.
So, does that give us a cost advantage, or it's a even ground for everyone?
I would say uh, theoretically it should give us some cost advantage, but we've really seen it from the perspective of taking away the cost disadvantage that we have today and then move towards the cost advantage. So, we are starting from a position of wanting to catch up. And once we've caught up, then now obviously it will give us when the volumes are there. I mean, for example, today we are only doing the first order of, we've done, we'll, by the end of this calendar year, we would have done maybe 14 or 15 trains of Pune Metro. So, which is also a very important thing because we've done this in 3 years' time. I mean, we got the order in August, September 2019 to set up the manufacturing, to develop the design, to make the first 3 trains in Italy, to set up the plant in India, to get all the approvals, and having delivered 14 to 15 trains within 3 years. And mind you, this was during COVID, is is definitely not a small achievement. So now going from here, when we are able to reach the 20 car per month or 15 to 20 car per month capacity, obviously our cost of production will come down drastically.
Sure. And lastly, from my side, on the wagon side of the business, uh, if we can briefly talk about, while we have talked about the macro opportunity, but probably little more about the private wagon side. I think that is something that we've not highlighted in our discussion. How is that market shaping up? Because that also seems to be a steady state market, growing at a reasonable pace.
Sure. So private wagon market is picking up quite well. Indian Railways is encouraging private investment into wagons. I have to say that the government, the Ministry of Railway, and of course the government of India is really, uh, in my 32 years of experience of dealing with the railways, for the first time, I'm seeing a very business-like, holistic approach that the railways and the government has been following. So, on one side, they are investing; on the other side, they're encouraging private investment. So, private investment of wagons is being encouraged to a great extent, and we see a lot of traction there. We've ourselves signed many contracts in the last weeks, months for private wagons. There are many opportunities in the pipeline, and we are continuing to be very bullish and very aggressive in that market. Sanjeev just asked me about the Gen Next. My son Pritesh, he's actually responsible for now singularly for the private wagon business. So we are kind of giving that kind of a focus on that.
Sure. And so how large that market would be currently, and where do you see it stabilizing?
So this market would be on an average 10 to 15% of the total wagon markets. I mean, at the end of the day, the wagons go onto the same track for the same purpose. So whether it's being bought by the railways or it's being bought by the private sector, the end use of the wagon is the same. So 10 to 15% in some years can go down to 8%, some 20 years, but you even it out, you average it out, 10 to 15% of the total wagons added by the in the system would be by the private sector.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir. That's all from my side, Sanjeev.
So, Kunal, I'll take it from just a couple of questions. One on the margin side, right? So you on the wagon side, I think in the last call you talked about 10 to 11% EBITDA margin on the wagons, right? Are the other businesses also similar margin? And Metro, is it lower today and then going to higher later? So how's that?
So, Sanjeev, what I mentioned is that all our businesses combined, our targeted EBITDA margin when we price, when we compete our product is between 8 to 10%. And that's the guidance that I've always maintained, that our business is a top line driven business. The top line is what drives the bottom line on an absolute terms. If we look at getting into very high levels of EBITDA margins, we will start losing on market share, and that is not what our aim and our strategy is. So 8 to 10% EBITDA margin is what we look at. Yes, the passenger transit business is yet to mature. When we are at full volume, when we do our own propulsion, I told you that the propulsion is about 25% of the train cost. So when we do that, definitely, the margins will be impacted. So even if on a very, very back of the envelope basis, if the propulsion manufacturer is earning 10% margin, which is more than 10%, but I'm just taking 10%, then ultimately it impacts 2.5% on my product EBITDA.
Sure.
So, that's the kind of delta that will happen once the propulsion is on track. So we've kind of set up dedicated teams to be focusing on the propulsion business and put that on the fast track pace.
Right. So overall, I think basically 8 to 10% margin from a sustainable perspective is one should look at in this business, right? That's a
That's right.
fair, yeah. And if you were to do propulsion exports, that could be much higher margin business.
So it would not be again possible for me to kind of break down product by product margins, because
Right.
some orders can have a higher margin, some orders can have a lower margin. But I'm talking about not one quarter or even not one financial year, but on a sustained. I just in the beginning of the call spoke to you about the 3-year period. When we talk about it internally, when I think about it within myself, I always look at this business because it's an infrastructure led business. I mean, our business is on the infrastructure.
Sure.
Infrastructure does not happen on a quarter to quarter or a year to year basis. The minimum period I should consider is a 3-year period.
Sure.
So if you look at a 3-year period for an infrastructure project, and if you look at, since we are an offshoot of an infrastructure ecosystem, we should also look at our business numbers from that 3-year perspective. And in that 3-year perspective, achieving a 8-10% EBITDA margin is, and passing on the cost escalation by way of the price variation clauses. So, all of the things that we have spoken about, wheel set availability or component availability, one quarter, 1 month, there can be a problem. But if we look at the bigger picture of it, we are able to overcome that problem.
Sure. And right now in the passenger side, is there a land grab happening, or people are generally more disciplined in terms of when people are bidding for these projects?
There are three people effectively, and they are large companies which are there. So there is Alstom, there is BML. So I really don't, I mean, obviously everybody wants to fill up their capacity. Now, whether we can term it as a land grab or not is something again. So nobody is going to be taking onerous contracts, at least on a sustained period of time. So there can be strategic pricing, there can be aggressive pricing by some people, but I don't see that. Uh, you know, I really don't see harakiri being committed by people.
Sure. Great. Umesh, last question from you. In terms of what legacy would you want to leave? Maybe 10 years online. What would make you satisfied that you've achieved? What is it that you are kind of driving this company to?
So what I'm driving this company to is making this company into Indian brand globally. I think that India deserves to be having a railway. India does not have today a global railway brand or rolling stock brand. Today we talk about large companies and brilliant companies like Alstom, like Siemens, like Hitachi, and all these companies which are there. But in India, we possess all the necessary manufacturing capability, engineering capability to be a rolling stock producer, not only for India but for the world. I think in India, what we lacked was confidence on ourselves. With the Make in India policy, with the Atmanirbhar Bharat policy, what this government has really done is they've said that, okay, Indian industry, we trust you, come along with us. Earlier, for so many years, till 2000 and maybe 15, 16, Indian companies, even BML, which was producing metro coaches, could not participate in tenders for metro coaches. उनको पार्टिसिपेट करना था तो वो Hyundai Rotem को साथ में लेकर के आना था, तब वो पार्टिसिपेट कर सकते थे. Titagarh could not even participate in Indian coaches. So when I go to a foreign land and I say I want to manufacture rolling stock for you, they say you can't bloody well do it for your own country. What will you do for us? So that was the dilemma that we were in. And today, with the policy of inclusiveness for Indian industry that the government has come up with, we can aspire to be an Indian global giant for the field of mobility. So all our businesses that we do are today in the field of mobility, whether it is freight, whether it is people, whether it is ships. So the whole idea, I mean, I would not kind of give you a McKinsey report kind of an answer that this is my long-term, big-time business plan, because I don't have any. I would say that what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a company which is solid. I'm trying to create a company which is risk mitigated, not only from the product perspective, because we have diversified the three main products or three main segments that we are in, but also geographically.
Right.
And make a company which can be respected, make a company which can be trusted. That's it.
Great. I think that's really great. Thank you so much, Umesh, for spending this time, and wish you all the very best. And I think also for the upcoming tenders. So
Thank
yeah.
you very much.
Thank you.
It
Thank
was
you,
a
sir.
great pleasure talking to you. Bye.
Thank you.